Greetings, Horror Night Nuts. A little bit of product placement there again. I was just showing off the Coke Zero, which of course is sponsoring our event this year. And as you can see, it had the lovely thing on the side. It talks about HH and XX Halloween Horror Nights 20, promoting the event. You probably notice it's backwards because the thing I use here on this computer to record these mad reminiscences and Horror Nights history and other videos that I make is in fact flipped. And I could use a different way of doing it the other way around, but it's more, for some reason, whenever I have a video like that, it takes almost twice as long to upload, the bastard, and what the hell, a mirror image isn't that bad, so just look at it backwards and you can see how to read it correctly. Besides, XX looks the same either way, so it shouldn't be that difficult to figure out. Anyway, here we are once again. Finally, after a prolonged absence, I'm able to jump right into the waters, so to speak, and continue my glorious Horror Nights history. Now coming to one of the most pivotal and important years in the entire history of Halloween Horror Nights. But first, and perhaps as a tribute to the Adventurers Club, where I used to work for many years, and indeed a tribute to the important character of Halloween Horror Nights 20, who, in his original incarnation, once worked at the Adventurers Club himself an awful long time ago. You know who I'm talking about, maybe. His name is Jimmy, but not me, a different Jimmy. Anyway, so, but first, that is to say, but first, no, sorry, bad joke, but they told that joke billions of times over there at the Adventurers Club. No, actually not but first, but proceeding in the normal direction, face forward, we will now, if I haven't fucked this video up already, now continue. But first, a little something I talked about in the previous video that I taped, what was it, 3 weeks ago, on the opening weekend, when I was so excited because I was going to Halloween Horror Nights in just a minute and I had to get those done quickly. Anyway, I mentioned the merchandise that I had acquired in the year 1999. Yes, indeed, here's one of them. This is the doubloon from 1999. As you can see, the parade doubloon, which I acquired when the parade went by and I snatched the doubloon. It has the presenting character of Imhotep, the mummy. On the side, on the reverse, it shows the archway from Universal Studios, and the actually doesn't quite have the archway like it usually. It has sort of a bit of the arch, but also the Universal Studios globe with a sort of gargoyle swooping down on it, and it reads, of course, Halloween Horror Nights 9, and on the other side it has yes, Halloween. It doesn't say Last Gasp on it, just Universal Studios Florida Halloween Horror Nights 9. Very nice, see? Dropped it. Don't worry. It's made to be thrown from parade floats at people. It's durable enough to be dropped on my desk. The other thing was, of course, the T-shirt. My oldest surviving T-shirt from Halloween Horror Nights. And it is this one here. You see there? It is very lovely. The Last Gasp image. It doesn't actually say Last Gasp, but it shows the artwork, very lovely, of the mummy coming out of bandages, looking quite horrific. And you can't tell there, but from the very early days, they had that sort of three-dimensional. You know how they do the red letters and they stick out, and the kind of tacky, goopy stuff. A lot of people hate that, but I kind of dig it. The goop running from the eyes of the mummy is tactile. It's sort of that same gel-like material, and you can actually feel it gooping out of its eyes. It's very cool. On the reverse, we have I Survived Halloween Horror Nights 1999 at Universal Studios Florida. But what's cool, or Halloween Horror Nights 9, 1999 at Universal. But what's cool about it, kind of incongruous, is that we have Igor, adorable little Igor, who first appeared in 1997 at Frightmares, and he's here nibbling on the W, actually the N in Halloween, nibbling on that N the way he had nibbled on an eyelid all those years before. So that's rather nifty. Why Igor is on that shirt 2 years later, I don't know, but people like the little bastard, and he's kind of cute, little green goblin-y, more like an imp, isn't he? Nifty little fellow. Anyway, so we've got a bit of Igor in one of my collectibles. It's a medium-sized t-shirt, of course. Back in the year 1999, I must have weighed no more than 190 pounds, a lot less than I do now. I couldn't possibly fit that on now. It would probably stretch and rip and tear and wreck the shirt for me to try to wear it, but I keep it as one of my treasures, obviously. So, now we get into the year 2000, the millennium had occurred. Well, technically, the millennium actually starts in 2001, but, of course, trying to explain that to anyone back then was ridiculous. So, it was, you know, everyone's, this is the new millennium, it's the 21st century, yay! And we're getting excited about that. Now, some interesting things happened that year before the event began with Universal Studios. Remember, I did a little bit of the history of Universal Studios, which may or may not have impacted the event in one way or another. Well, something happened at Universal Studios that shook things up again in the year 2000. In June of the year 2000, Edgar Bronfman, sold his company Seagram, the Canadian drink company, to a larger corporation that was French. Yes, the French company. French company Vivendi. Vivendi, of course, made bottled water, but also happened to own a film studio in France, Studio Canal. So they owned Studio Canal, one of the major film companies of France at the time, and one that made a lot of interesting films that were more action-adventure oriented, as French films were starting to move toward that from the old, those old French films that you sit there and you go, what the fuck is going on? Even if you can read the subtitles, you still don't know what the fuck is going on, and it's like, it's like, something about a dying mime or something. It's like, yeah. But now the French were starting to make films that imitated the Americans a bit, and have more kung fu and action, and they still, of course, would tend to be a bit weird and a bit French in their sensibilities. But there was one called Brotherhood of the Wolf, for example. Excellent movie, got released by Universal, and of course Studio Canal also made films in the United States, like the weird David Lynch film Mulholland Drive, also came out about the same time, released by Universal. So these became Universal pictures because Studio Canal and Vivendi and Universal all became one when they acquired Universal, and the whole company became known as Vivendi Universal. So this had happened before Halloween Horror Nights came out later that year. Now, whether or not this affected Halloween Horror Nights in a positive or negative way, I don't know. But this year's Halloween Horror Nights in the year 2000, the last 10 years ago, was amazing. It was, they did incredible, wonderful things and expanded all sorts of things in many ways, which I'll get into probably in the next 3 or 4 videos, as I'm already at 9 minutes, and I probably won't get the whole thing done in one video. But this brings me to talk about an individual many of you probably already know if you're psychotic, obsessed Halloween Horror Night fanatics, and the fellow is called James Michael Roddy, or J. Michael Roddy, as he's usually referred to. Now, back in 2000, he was a rather young man and was involved in Halloween Horror Nights quite a bit, and he came up with a character concept idea that he was really excited about and wanted to have a presenting character, an iconic character that was sort of his baby, and it would be an evil clown. And he really thought this would be an amazing thing that would bring a whole new level to Halloween Horror Nights we'd never seen before. Now, I talked a bit about Jack quite a lot in an earlier video. Remember the one that's on Clownovision? that I did back in earlier this year, before Halloween Horror Nights 20, when we thought it would be a very iconic year. Sure enough, I was right. You know, all the icons are here this year, just as I thought. Even the Crypt Keeper, my God, that's awesome. In Hollywood Boulevard. You say, well, what about Bloody Mary? She's not there. Pay attention when you go through psychoscarapy. That's all I have to say about that. Look for some broken glass, and look for someone behind some broken glass, a nice, dark-haired, beautiful psychiatrist doing something extreme to a patient the way a certain other psychiatrist did in her clinic, and then you'll realize that's the same woman. Trust me, there's a cameo of Dr. Mary Agana happening this year, after all. Haha. So they're all there as I predicted. It is the most iconic year in history, but it all began, this icon stuff, really in the year 2000, even though the Crypt Keeper is still considered the first event icon back from 1995, 5 years earlier. In 2000, the idea was, let's have an iconic character like we did then, but not take a established, what they say, IP from somewhere else like the Crypt Keeper, but let's create our own unique, iconic character for Halloween Horror Nights this year. And the idea then that Roddy has was an evil clown, because evil clowns, based on what his theory was that looking at phobias people had, things that scared people, this kept coming up was coulrophobia, which is the fear of clowns. A lot of people are damn frightened of clowns, which is strange because clowns are actually nice people. I mean, they're there to make you happy. The whole idea of a clown is to make you laugh and ha ha ha, funny clown, ha ha, I'm happy now. But there are a lot of people, when they see a clown, they get terrified, and there may be reasons for that. You know, there's sort of an archetype. It goes way, way back. I mean, even, you know, we think about, for example, maybe the evil clown came when, in the 70s, when that psychopathic lunatic in Chicago area, John Wayne Gacy, there's this evil, despicable serial killer who would put on clown makeup because he would play, you know, he'd be a clown called Coco the Clown who would do children's, as ghastly as it sounds, children's birthday party clown. To think that your children's birthday party clown was really a demented serial killer, but of course the children he performed for there were not his victims, because he wasn't interested in little children. He was interested in teenagers and young men in their 20s, whom he would invite over to his house to do work. He was a well-respected member of the community, and you know, the serial killers usually have this sort of double life going, right? And people thought he was a swell guy, and he was putting all these young guys to work, except they kept not coming back. Eventually, he made a stupid mistake of not picking a victim who was a transient or someone that no one would miss, but he picked one that was a young man in the community everybody respected. Hence, he disappeared, last seen at Gacy's house, and they went and they dug up his basement and found something like over 30 bodies, making him like the record holder for serial kills for years until Henry Lee Lucas showed up. Really horrible man, hideous, evil bastard, but one who continued his clown obsession. Even in prison, he would paint pictures of clowns obsessively, and pictures of the dwarves from Snow White, and you know, these sort of Disney paintings of Disney characters and happy clowns. And although he himself was not allowed to benefit from it, they're collector's items today. People who, oh look, I've got an original John Wayne Gacy, and if it wasn't for the fact that he was a psychotic killing bastard, these would be crap, schlock, kitsch paintings that wouldn't be worth a dime, but now they're worth, like, you know, thousands and thousands, maybe even, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars if you own a Gacy painting. Kind of demented, really, but that's, you know. So people thought maybe that's where the evil clown really came from, because that guy was so horrible. But in fact, it's earlier than that. It goes back way before. It goes back to, you know, like, remember the Joker from the Batman comics? That was way back in the 30s, and that was based on an older idea that came from a French novel which became a film called The Man Who Laughs, in which a German actor named Conrad Veidt performed this character, Gwynplaine, who had this eternal smile carved on his face, and even though he looked like he was happy, sometimes he was not happy and was doing terrible, evil things. Okay, see, I've already come to the end of this video, so Part 2 will be next.